Hello and welcome to Allegedly Astrology. Each week we break down the astrology that happened during some of the biggest scandals and events in history.
Thank you guys so much for listening. And if you want to support us even more, you can leave us a 5-star review and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen on.
And if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and DM us a screenshot of that review, we'll make you a custom meme of your big three and send you a quick write-up about it.
We also have some super cool stuff on TeePublic, so go there and check it out.
And we're also all over social media, so follow us. We're Allegedly Astrology on Instagram, Reddit, Hey Hero, and TikTok, and Allegedly Astro on Twitter.
Also, you can visit our website, allegedlyastrology.com, to learn more about us and the show and to book a reading with me, Dana. And also check out some charts and transcripts from other episodes.
With that, let's get into today's very lighthearted topic. Dana, what are we covering?
Today, we're talking about 90s icons, the Spice Girls.
Woo! Normally when we say lighthearted topics, we don't mean it, but this time we actually do. If you are unaware of who the Spice Girls are, they are a British pop group of 5 women, Mel B, Mel C, Geri, Emma, and Victoria, that are all household names around the world. So if you were born in the late 80s or early 90s, they might have even been your first concert. Dana, Sarah, were they your first concert?
Both of ours, I think.
Yes, they were mine.
They were
yes.
both your first concert.
Broke my arm like the week before I went, and I was convinced that I was going to have them sign my cast. We were at like a huge, what's it called? Amphitheater. So,
arena. Yeah. Like an amphitheater. But they were going to single out Dana and sign her cast.
They were going to see it and they were going to sign it.
What color was it?
Green.
Oh, interesting. I thought you were going to say pink.
No, I didn't like pink because I thought I was like a tomboy.
My first concert was the Beach Boys because I'm a 60-year-old woman at heart. But since forming, the Spice Girls have sold 100 million records worldwide. They're the best-selling female group of all time. They've received tons of music awards, and they are considered to be the most widely recognized group since the Beatles. So let's get the girl power going and learn more about how this magnificent group came to be.
So in 1993, 2 dudes, Bob and Chris Herbert, who were a father and son duo, wanted to make a girl band to compete with the British boy bands at the time. So they put out an ad for a female pop group in a magazine, and they knew the vibe they wanted. They wanted 5 very different girls who could appeal to different types of audiences. And in response, 400 women descended upon Dancework London to audition. So what was going on at the time of the audition?
This was on March 4th, 1994 at Danceworks London. And we have Mercury conjunct Mars in Aquarius, which is like making plans to, penetrate the zeitgeist. Mercury's technology and like how we think, and Mars is the planet of like power and penetration. Also, this conjunction is square the North Node, Jupiter, and Pluto in Scorpio. And squares are aspects of tension. Jupiter is the planet of faith, hope, and beliefs. And the North Node is like what's trending or increasing in a society at a given time. And then Pluto is like the major planet of like power struggles or like perversion or transformation. And in Scorpio, it's going to like relate to competition, sex appeal, sort of like maybe like changes in sex, like, girl bands instead of the Beatles. Also like just generally being a dark horse. That's what Scorpio is also really good at. Plus, the moon was in Sagittarius, which is, arguably the sign of the pop star.
Hell yes. We love that. Also hilarious that they just like put an ad out in a magazine. Right. Like if you were going to form a girl group now, you would just like be on TikTok, I guess. I don't know, but this was very 1994. But after 2 auditions, it was Geri, Mel B, Mel C, Victoria, and Michelle Steverson who were chosen for the group, which was then called Touch, which like terrible name. But it seemed like the rest of the girls didn't really like Michelle that much and didn't really think she was committed. So she was replaced with Emma, and the group's name was also changed to Spice. Not much better than Touch, but definitely better than Touch. And so now that we have the 5 girls together, let's learn about each of their big 3s.
Okay, so first we have Melanie Brown, aka Mel B, aka Scary Spice, and she was known for her curly hair, being loud, saying zig zig in their song Wannabe, and wearing a lot of leopard print.
Okay, Mel B was born on May 29th, 1975 at 5:59 p.m. in Leeds, England. And she's a Gemini sun, an Aquarius moon, and a Scorpio rising. And so
wow, I really see that for her.
Though the person says that it was just because she's loud, people are like, oh, you're going to call like the one woman of color scary and all the rest are like posh,
Cutesy.
like sporty. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it was probably racist. But as well, if we're going to spin it in any sort of cool way, the cool way I think it would be is that like she inspires some sort of emotion, whereas the rest of them are just sort of like an adjective that's flat. So she's a Gemini sun, like me. Very cool. So she's like a real performance artist. Like from what I remember, she was also like the most outgoing and gregarious one. Although I guess Ginger was pretty gregarious too, or just outgoing, but she was more sultry. But she also has an Aquarius moon, which will make her like friendly, but also more aloof, yet still relatable. Like since Aquarius is a sign of the collective. And then her Scorpio rising makes her cool and alluring. Her guard's like always up. This could also maybe be why she's, scary, although there are many like very silent Scorpio risings who walk among us. So yeah, Scorpio is like an especially vulnerable sign, and she acts like kind of invulnerable with her Gemini sun and Aquarius moon, which are both air signs. And like, so she gets away with being silly and I think protects herself through that sort of like, it's like a shallow but like fun way to interact with people,
Yeah, she always seemed like the prankster kind of.
I was always her when I played Spice Girls with my friends.
Yeah, speaking of that, I was going to say, what was your guys' favorite Spice Girl?
Scary.
I was Ginger. She was always my ride or die.
I flip-flop between posh and sporty.
Obviously.
Oh, wow. Something, though, about Mel B that I learned recently is that she was in like a really like fucked up relationship with Eddie Murphy.
I know.
Oh
She's
my
a baby
God,
with him.
I forgot about
wild?
that. She has a baby with him?
Yeah. He
Whoa,
love bombed her and was like a complete freak.
He has his Mars in Cancer, I believe.
Sarah, we were only supposed to talk about girl power this episode, not men doing shitty stuff. But maybe we'll save that for a bonus episode because I absolutely did not know that. All right, well, up next, we've got Melanie Chisholm, aka Mel C, aka Sporty Spice. Mel C was always in breakaway pants. God, those were so cool. A tracksuit, something sports related. She also had a gold tooth, and she was the one that was belting out the vocals. Arguably, she had the best voice.
Yeah. I loved her gold tooth too. Like in her Barbie doll, I had all the Spice Girls Barbie dolls, but hers, I was like, yeah, man, that gold tooth is fucking killing it.
Nice detail. That's very nice. So let's find out about her. She was born on January 12th, 1974 at 9:32 p.m. in Widnes, England, or like, it's probably like Wine, England, knowing how they pronounce things over there. She has a Capricorn sun and then a Virgo moon and a Virgo rising. And so like, what do we know about Capricorn suns? They're super hardworking, right? And it's just very fitting that she was always in track pants and a sports bra, not just because it's practical, but also because it's a uniform, and Capricorns just like fucking love uniformity. Also though, Virgo moon and Virgo rising, Virgo is a sign of health. So like fitness falls under this category, and she was like very athletic. And so also Capricorn and Virgo are both just like productive and exacting earth signs. And I feel like she was, I mean, her voice was kind of earthy, it wasn't like an ethereal noise. It was like, if you listen to it, you can feel the earth.
She probably seemed the most committed to singing in general.
And she could do a flip-flop. She was very multi-talented.
Yeah, she really was.
She was always nailing the vocals. But I do love the Virgo for her because it's like, oh yeah, you would be wearing like workout clothes all the time.
Pre-athleisure.
And then we have Emma Bunton, who for me, that's who when Geri left, that's in the like kind of when we played with my cousins, like I was Ginger, and my cousin was Emma. But then when Geri left, we had to I just bullied everyone. And I was like, no, I'm Emma, you're posh. And then my youngest cousin, Kristen, like would just be whatever the scraps were left. So I don't even know what she was most of the time. But like, I remember that shift where it was like, oh shit, like Geri's gone. We have to figure out who plays who in Spice World. But anyways, back to Emma. Emma Bunton is Baby Spice. She's the youngest of the group. She was blonde. She wore her hair in pigtails pretty frequently. She wore these like cute little dresses, and sometimes she sucked on a lollipop, which now thinking about it is just like sexualizing a grown woman.
Not even going to pretend I don't love it. I think that self-infantilization is fucking awesome. I happen to like pigtails. And also those Chupa Chup lollipops were really good. I had like a whole thing of them.
Oh my God, Chupa Chubs. Are they Chupa Chubs? I call them Chupa Chubs.
I'm not sure at all what they were. I just used to get them at Claire's.
They were everywhere in every mall in America.
Yeah, I had like a whole, I think I had like the giant one. I think I got it for Christmas that you could like never possibly eat, but it was a novelty that we all had to have. Anyway, she was born on January 21st, 1976 at 4 a.m. in Finchley, England. And she has an Aquarius sun, a Virgo moon, and a Sagittarius rising. And Aquarius suns are freak shows by choice. The sun is in detriment in Aquarius, which can make people like with Aquarius suns maybe feel pressured, inherent pressure to kind of like stand out and identify themselves among the masses. And Virgo moons are sweet and critical. And the moon is also emotions, your body. And Virgo is a sign of like the purest, and nothing's more pure than a child. So maybe this is why it has helped to inspire the sort of like, oh, I'll stand out by being, a baby. And then also she has a Sagittarius rising, which is like just very fun and gullible. So like even if she was, obviously playing a part, which they all were, like she's still like that sweetness and enthusiasm is like, I think, very real.
There's a lot of Aquarius and a lot of Virgo in just the first three that we've seen. So we're seeing a lot of air and earth right now. Well, that brings us to our next Spice Girl, and that is Victoria Adams. You might know her now as Victoria Beckham, aka Posh Spice. She was known for like a blunt bob haircut, wearing stilettos, very chic black dresses, didn't have a lot of time for anyone. Never smiled.
Very cool. She was born on April 17th, 1974 at 10:07 a.m. in Harlow, England.
Aries queen. No wonder I liked her so much.
Yeah, and because you guys look alike. But yeah, she's an Aries sun, Aquarius moon, and Aquarius rising. And so the sun in Aries is exalted, which means Victoria knows exactly who she is and like who she wants to be. But her Aquarius moon and rising is like what gave her that icy cold veneer. And like Aquarius is like the only sign fully contained in winter. So they can be as cold as they want or just like aloof too, Which, I mean, she did that well. And also Victoria is just like known for not smiling, which is just very winter,
Wow. More Aquarius. This is crazy. Very curious to hear about this, our last Spice Girl.
And then last but not least, my personal favorite, Geri Halliwell, aka Ginger Spice, which I recently learned she's married to.
Yes, Christian Horner from the Red Bull Formula One. She's in Drive to Survive. I screamed when I first saw her on it. I love Formula One now, but she's definitely part of that.
I love that for her.
Okay, literally so many people like it. Like I hear they watch that show and they are now committed Formula One fans. So
I'm obsessed with it. If you guys don't watch Drive to Survive already, you have to.
Back to Geri. So Geri had red hair. She was famous for wearing this Union Jack dress. Even if you don't know what that is, like you know what dress it is. She was always really bringing the girl power. And she's also known for leaving the group suddenly. So that's Geri.
Dana, tell us about Geri.
She was born on August 6th, 1972 at 2:30 p.m. in Watford, England. And she is a Leo sun, a Cancer moon, and a Scorpio rising.
Interesting.
Yeah, right?
Probably why I love that bitch. Cancer moons. United.
But she has this is very different than the other.
It is.
So I could see why she might have felt more alienated from the group.
So the sun's at home in Leo and can like be especially susceptible to vulnerabilities of fame because any placement in Leo like already feels like it's on display or always feels like it's being watched, which is related to why it's like the performer of the zodiac, or like what makes it that way, like the origin story. But like this can also probably like get exhausting, especially if you rise to fame like they did. And her moon is also at home in Cancer, but this like could have a similar vibe to her Leo sun, except instead of being watched, like maybe she just feels like really like emotionally exposed. Both placements are like great for like an artist because, it's just like dramatic and vulnerable. But then she's like a Scorpio rising on top of all of this, which she'll just make her like, Scorpio is a sign of trauma. So this is just going to make her sort of like defensive and sort of like she could roll with the punches. But I think that this big three does the best planning themselves, like solo maybe, even though she was such an integral part of the group.
Her solo career after, spoiler alert, she like crushed it. She had like a million number one singles even after she left. But anyway, so Spice is together. They're co-writing their music, which I feel like is a big deal to note. Like they were a girl group. A lot of people think, they had some like Max Martin bullshit behind them. But they were writing songs together. They just didn't play instruments. But they're doing a lot of musical showcases for record labels, but they're honestly not really like feeling that great about it because they've just been like nonstop, like practicing and performing all the time, but they didn't have a contract. And they also weren't really liking the direction their management team was taking them in.
So they left their management team, which is a baller move. Like I feel like a lot of bands in that era were very much like taking advantage of their managers and like couldn't get out of it. So kudos to them. But to make sure they kept control of their work, they allegedly stole their master recordings, which is badass. And then they signed with a new manager, Simon Fuller. And by this time, people in the music industry had been hearing about these quote unquote crazy girls.
So eventually they get asked to sign with Virgin Records. And around this time, they realized that a rapper had the name Spice. So they were like, fuck. And people in the industry at all their showcases had started referring to them as the Spice Girls. So they just changed their name to that instead because copyright infringement. And on the day they're supposed to sign their contract, they sent 5 blow-up dolls in their place to Virgin Records.
What?
So they had their like driver be like, the Spice Girls are here. And then they just like rolled in these like these blow-up dolls. And then eventually the record people were like, what the fuck is wrong with these women? And then eventually they like were like, haha, JK, it's us now.
We're
like
here.
We'll sign our contract. Yeah. So they signed with Virgin Records. So what was going on this day?
Wow, I love that so much. Okay, so this was July 13th, 1995. And Saturn was in Pisces opposite Mars and Virgo, like exact. And Saturn and Mars are the malefics and of the zodiac. And oppositions are aspect of like awareness and relationship. Virgo and Pisces is the axis about healing and humility. So I feel like this is big for girl power energy. Like they're disrupting an industry, as corny as that sounds, right? But also it's sort of like purifying the culture in a way that's like clownish, which is because like, so like Jupiter is ruling Saturn, right? So Saturn's the planet of like discipline, but Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is the clown of the zodiac, is like squaring it. So it's like challenging, sort of like, oh, you're so serious. Like you can heal with jokes too. And so they're just like being fun. Girls, girl power.
Girls
Being fun.
Girls being fun.
We weren't the
Is there
first.
a Spice Girls documentary?
I'm surprised there isn't. I
want to watch it. All right, somebody
Let's
make a Spice Girls documentary, please.
If there is, I have not known about it.
I'm sure there's like documentaries that have covered the Spice Girls, but probably in like a larger cultural context, not like just about them, but who knows? So from this point on, the group was writing, recording, and touring nonstop. They were just trying to get their name out there because they were like up against a music industry dominated by alt rock, hip hop, R&B. So they released their first single, Wannabe.
Oh my God. Wannabe? Honestly, he get like the moment you say Wannabe, you just hear.
I'm like dancing.
I'm
dancing right now. You can't see me, but I'm dancing.
With my make it last forever. Friendship never ends. If you want to be my lover, you have
Quick,
got
Sarah,
to
keep
give.
talking so Dana doesn't have to sing.
That was like funny in the last episode. We were like, if you couldn't tell by Dana's perfect tone and pitch.
I'm tone deaf and nose blind.
Dana can't smell. That is true. So no joke, Wannabe changed the course of pop music and truly catapulted the Spice Girls into the stratosphere of pop culture. The song went straight to the top of the British singles chart and stayed there for almost the whole summer. So like a straight up banger. And then it went to hit number 1 in 37 countries. And the video made them an international sensation. So what was happening the time that Wannabe hit the airwaves?
So it was released on July 8th, 1996. And this is my favorite chart we've seen so far. So we have Venus conjunct Mars in Gemini opposite Pluto in Sagittarius. Venus is the planet of love and harmony, being lovers. And Mars is the planet of like sex and penetration and like, you know, getting with people. And in Gemini, it can relate to like your friends. Also, it's 2. So it could be like, you know, poly or whatever. I mean, if we want to like be artistic with it, it could mean like, if you want to be my lover, you have to get with all of my personalities. As Gemini also could
I like
be
that.
sometimes. And also Venus stationed direct in Gemini 5 days earlier. And like, what do we know about stationary planets? They're super strong because they appear to be like stationary or still and also closer to Earth in the sky. So like if like vibrationally, it's like louder. So we have all this like loud Venus energy. And Gemini's a clown, right? So it's like clowning around and like, you know, wanting to get with all of its friends.
A bunch of women clowning around,
Love
being
it.
loud.
Trolling men. Because like, can you imagine like telling a guy, like, if you want to get with me, you have to get with all my friends. I'd be like, what the fuck? Why are you doing this to me?
I love that.
Like, we are a package deal, sir. Deal with it. So this is like a very interesting fact, or at least something I didn't know. So like most things, the Spice Girls became iconic for, their look and image were all unintentional. So most girl groups at the time had always dressed alike. And the Spice Girls actually tried to coordinate their outfits for the Wannabe video, but it just like was not working. So they were kind of like, fuck it. Like, we'll just dress like however we want for it.
I love that. So this was around the time that the Spice Girls got their nicknames. And this really wasn't planned, they say. So Mel B had said they got their famous nicknames from a lazy journalist that couldn't be bothered to remember their names. So he just gave them nicknames. And so the magazine they were talking to, Top of the Pops, explained the reasoning behind the nicknames. And this is like so sexist and stupid, but here we go. So according to Top of the Pops, Victoria was Posh Spice because she was wearing a Gucci-style mini dress and seemed pouty and reserved. Emma wore pigtails and sucked on a lollipop, so obviously she was Baby Spice. Mel C spent the whole time leaping around in her tracksuit, so we called her Sporty Spice. I named Mel B Scary Spice because she was so shouty.
Shouty.
And Geri was Ginger Spice simply because of her hair. Not much thought went into that one.
And he remembered all those details and he could remember their names.
Yeah. Talk about, he is a lazy ass journalist, honestly.
She was bouncing around. It's like, okay.
She was shouty.
Oh my God. He remembered everything they were doing and what they were wearing, but couldn't remember
their
name.
very easy names, which, 2 out of 5 would have been Mel.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. 2 of them have the same name.
It's not
They're
that hard.
All pretty common name. But anyways, the Spice Girls were working their asses off. They released 2 more singles, like one right after another, Say You'll Be There and To Become One. Honestly, To Become One, such a creepy song, but amazing. A slow grind.
I'm singing it in my head right now.
And they did the To Become One in the music video, like was like the peace sign to the one finger. And these songs, along with Wannabe, got a ton of airplay. And they eventually became 3 of the top 5 biggest selling singles in the UK in 1996. So they were like crushing the charts. And they released their album Spice, and it becomes insanely popular. And at this point, people are like, oh my God, these girls are insane. And people started comparing them to the Beatles. So it's like mania for the Spice Girls.
We'll look into doing the Beatles and the Spice Girls first album breakout charts. But back to Spice Girls. 1997 is a huge year for the Spice Girls, both for their success and their nonstop work schedule. Their debut album, Spice, is released in the US and becomes a best-selling album. They release a book and it sells out right away. They film and promote their movie Spice World, which, I've watched that. So probably that and Titanic are the movies I've watched the most in my life.
I love that movie so much.
Spice Girls is so good.
Spice World is
so
amazing.
Campy.
Oh, it's so campy.
It was actually even better, I think, as I was older.
Better because there's more jokes we didn't get,
that's true.
which that's what a good movie is. But then they released their second album, also called Spice World, at the end of 1997, which they had to write and record while filming the movie. And during this time, they fired their manager. So this was like a very, very hectic year in good and bad ways.
And I think that's something that I didn't realize, because I think we were like 8 or 9 at the time when they became popular, but they basically did everything that they're famous for within the course of like a year and a half. Like, it's crazy.
That's so nuts. I mean, we were little, but also I feel like they just took up so much space in the pop culture ether that like I just assumed looking back they would have been around for a lot more time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The timeline is actually like insane. So over the course of 1 year, they had released 2 albums that were insanely successful, and that movie, Spice World. Not to mention, they also did things like travel to South Africa to meet Nelson Mandela. And he said it was like one of the best moments of his life.
That's incredible.
I wonder what his favorite song was.
He said that quote, that meeting them was like an amazing moment for him.
Imagine him singing Wannabe in his cell.
And then they also met Prince Harry and probably gave him his first boner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a famous picture of like Geri. I think she kisses him on the cheek or something.
And he's like so red.
Yeah. The reddest ginger of the land. And then, so, with a band that's like this crazy, what's next? And obviously it's a world tour. So up until this point, the Spice Girls had only done one-off performances or award shows. So,
which is wild. But like Sarah said, all their success was like condensed in this really tight timeline that it wasn't like they they honestly didn't even have time to schedule a tour. But naturally, they had their first concert in Istanbul.
Awesome.
Which why? Because Pepsi was sponsoring the tour, and they said they had to launch their tour in a country where Pepsi outsold Coke. And so apparently that's Turkey. The concert was an 8,000 capacity basketball arena, featured pyrotechnics, lots of choreography, a miniature roller coaster. So it was honestly pretty great. And so what was going on with their first concert?
Remember how cool Pepsi seemed like growing up? Like, I feel like, because like Britney Spears did, Pepsi, Spice Girls had Pepsi. And I remember being little and being like, there's no difference between Pepsi and Coke. But like, as I got older, I was like, there's 100%.
There's a clear difference
between Pepsi and Coke. Like,
only
they taste
serial killers
alike.
like Pepsi, but they have really good marketing. Until Kendall Jenner, they had great marketing.
She ruined it. She cursed them.
And with one hand off of a can, she ruined Pepsi.
An entire brand. Dana, back to the first concert.
Their first concert was on October 12th, 1997 in Istanbul, Turkey. And the sun was conjunct Mercury in Libra on this day, opposite Saturn in Aries. And so this is like a day before Mercury Cazimi in Libra. And so Mercury Cazimi is like purify the mind, like individually and then also sort of collectively. And Libra is all about like harmony in groups, and it's opposite Saturn in Aries. And Saturn does not like to be in Aries. So like Saturn's a planet of lack and like discipline. And in Aries, it can be like a little narrow-minded. Like Aries is the individual, and Saturn in Aries like can really get sort of like tunnel vision and like struggle to see outside of itself. But oppositions are aspect of like awareness and relationship. And the sun and Mercury are putting the spotlight on how much Saturn can accomplish when like they unite as a group in girl power. And then also Pluto, Venus, and Mars are in Sagittarius. And Pluto, again, the planet of power shifts. Venus is aesthetics. And Mars is like, what's yours? And like, it's just like taking all of it in Sagittarius and making it fun. And then also this like sextiles the Cazimi. So it's sort of all like really working together in a way that's harmonious. And like, you know, I just love this girl power in this Libra.
Well, The Guardian called the concert the sort of pop show they don't do anymore. And because British media is merciless, The Sun called it competent and capable with plenty of room for improvement, which is insane. Like, why don't you try doing a choreographed pyrotechnic show, Sun reporter? But anyway, regardless of what the press said, people were just obsessed with the Spice Girls. They literally could have done nothing and people would have been so obsessed with them because their music was just banger after banger.
Oh my God, yes. So then after that, 1998 rolls around and they start the Spice World Tour, which is a tour that will go from Europe to North America back to the UK. So fans are just freaking out over this news. But at this point, the media started to hate on them because it was just kind of like a lot of overexposure. You know, keep in mind, they were everywhere. They had 2 top 10 albums. And one thing I didn't realize, but we already kind of inadvertently had been talking about, is that the Spice Girls like love to like license the fuck out of things and put their name on like everything.
Not a business, man. They're business, man. As Jay-Z said.
Business
girls.
Business days.
The business girls.
But yeah, I feel like they were one of the first musical artists that were truly like also a marketing phenomenon. And they became the most merchandise group in music history. They had tons of sponsorships, and within the first 2 years of their career, they put their names on more than 100 products, ranging from chips, lollipops, chocolate, dolls. It's estimated they made between $508 million on licensing alone by May of 1998. So in less than 6 months,
you love to see it.
They did that, which is crazy.
I loved it. I bought so many things. I had like a Spice Girls ring, like it just said Spice on it. It was purple and glittery.
Oh, I love
like,
that.
why did I need that? I did not care. I had all their dolls. But it was like anything that had Spice Girls on it, like I feel like you wanted to buy.
Yeah.
So everyone is tired from being overworked, everyone being the Spice Girls, but the tour goes on. And then one day the girls get to the show and see a note that says Geri is sick, but the tour is just going to like go on as scheduled. So they're like, weird. But anyway, whatever, we'll keep working. So they keep making appearances and performing without her. They're kind of like, where's Geri? Then, 9 days before the US leg of their tour is about to start, Geri announces that she's leaving the Spice Girls, which that would have been the concert we were at, Dana. So she was
you
not
guys
there.
didn't see her?
No.
Wow.
There were only 4 of a core memory of mine, besides like the opening of Wannabe, is the Spice Girls had this song called Naked, where in which they would sit, they would take a chair, turn it forwards, and then they would like look like they were naked, and you would just see like their arms and legs coming off the chair, which also is weird when you think like the majority of their fans were like children. So I was like, what? What was going on? But anyways, there was just 4 of them, and I remember thinking Geri should be up there in this moment. Like there should be 5
I remember
chairs.
like pretending that I wasn't disappointed, like coaching myself to be like, you're not disappointed. You're not disappointed.
I was always hoping she would appear. Like I'd be like, I think Geri's going to come. And my mom's like, yeah, okay.
So this was on May 31st, 1998. And 6 days earlier, there was a new moon in Gemini conjunct Mars, which was square the north node, or the nodes in Virgo and Pisces with the north node in Virgo. This is like the new moon is close to the degree of the Venus and Mars conjunction that occurred when Wannabe came out. So it's sort of like signaling a shift in that group dynamic. And also like, it's separating a group, right? It's the Mars in the Gemini. It's sort of like, gotta get with my friends, and now my friends are all, coming apart. Also, it's square the nodal axis, which is like super tense. Squares are tense, right? So whenever you hear like a planet is like square the nodal axis or like at the bendings of the nodes, this is going to be like tense and like maybe a day where you like kind of want to, sit in the fetal position. It's just like painful and like maybe representative of awkward fated events, I guess. Ones that have to happen, but like aren't, exciting usually. Sometimes they're probably exciting, though. I bet a lot of people could prove me wrong. But not today.
Not today. Today it's a somber moment.
News of Geri leaving was one of the biggest entertainment stories around the world that year. And at first, Geri said her reason for leaving was that she wasn't getting along with other members of the group. And there definitely had been reports of the Spice Girls having heated arguments, but this was very specifically between Mel B, aka Scary Spice, and Geri, aka Ginger Spice. So what's their bi-wheel like?
Just remember, a bi-wheel, for those of you that are unaware, is when we take 2 charts, we overlap them, and from that, we could see the relationship dynamics.
Okay, so they're both Scorpio risings and they both have Venus in Cancer. And that is what I'm focusing on for a feud. Because like people don't always get along with like the same sign and placement. Like you might not every sign has affinity maybe with that sign. And this is especially true for like maybe, Scorpio and Cancer. They're water signs, they're emotional, but they're also both like defensive by nature. Think about what a scorpion is and like what a crab is. They're both like shell creatures. Like one hides in its shell or like tears off its arm and like runs away sideways. And then the other one like squirts poison if anyone gets too close. And so also getting too close can look like just being a lot like you, right? Especially, recognizing sort of the likeness.
Damn.
So yeah, I believe the feud was real.
They're friends now.
But years later, Geri would say that she was depressed and had become very disillusioned and exhausted from their very hectic schedules. She said that she just like didn't feel like she belonged there anymore and that they didn't need her. So she kind of gave in and threw in the towel. And remember, this was before like mental health was really like widely spoken about. And especially in the UK, if you've listened to our royal family episode, they don't like to talk about mental health. And so it just was something she probably didn't feel like she could just like talk to the group about. She was just like, you know what? I'm out.
Yeah. And the last straw for her was when she received an offer to give an interview about breast cancer, because as a teen, she had her like a breast cancer scare. But the band said that they didn't want her to do it because it was like Geri giving an interview alone as opposed to like the whole group doing an interview.
That's all that Aquarius influence. No, together. We do it together. And then she's a Leo, so she's like, no, can I just give it?
She's the only one that does it. So she probably did feel like a little ostracized from the group just based on even like their charts.
True. Good point.
They had much more of a collective mindset and she doesn't. Anyway, this was a really rough time for Geri. So what was happening with her profections?
Okay, so she was in the second house here and she has Sagittarius in the second house and Jupiter was her time lord. And so the second house relates to things like salary, possessions, as well as like general stability and even food. So like if you're on tour, like maybe your diet's not, being maintained, which would be something that could, contribute to or like just pile on, sort of like being overworked. And also second house years can be like, since it relates to salary, they can be times when like people just see career changes, like maybe they get a raise or maybe they get fired or maybe they leave their job, sort of thing like that. And also I guess it could just be like her feeling, you know, like no longer feeling like herself in the group, right? On the day that she left, Saturn was in Aries at 29 degrees, trine her natal Jupiter in Sagittarius. And so Saturn is the planet of like slowing down, and Jupiter is the planet that's like sort of like the life you bring to the party, right? It's also like Sagittarius is very loud, but Saturn and Aries, even though it's an Aries and a fire sign, it's sort of like Saturn trines are aspects that enable. So it's sort of like enabling her to maybe finally slow down after however long she like maybe wanted to or needed to.
Yeah.
And again, Jupiter is her time lord. So this is like a significant aspect.
Fans were obviously shocked at her leaving. And like I was saying, like I feel like a lot of like your favorite Spice Girl had to kind of shift. Like all the Geri fans had to pick another girl to cosplay as, basically. But the 4 remaining Spice Girls carried on and finished their world tour. Then they released an album, Forever, which didn't do so well. But in December 2000, the girls announced they were going on an indefinite hiatus.
Which is crazy. Like, probably not that many people saw all Spice Girls perform together.
No, that's what I realized too.
Though fans were not getting Spice Girls music, they were getting a ton of solo projects from them. Mel B released a few albums. Emma released 3 albums. Mel C released 8 albums. But Geri went on to have a super successful solo career. She released 3 albums and held the record for most #1 songs by a British female solo artist for 14 years.
Wow. And Geri.
Yeah. So she was like the Harry Styles of like One Direction. They all tried the solo thing, but yes. And even Victoria released a solo album, even though she like barely ever sang, but she was like, well, if everyone else is doing it.
That's why when Geri left, like Victoria wasn't like excited, but she was slightly happy because it meant she got to sing on Wannabe. Like that was.
Oh my God.
To me, Victoria was very much like the Kevin Richardson from the Backstreet Boys of the Spice Girls, like someone who's just there to harmonize. You know, you're not going to get a lot of like one-off mic moments.
I also weirdly liked Kevin, you guys. Maybe I'm just a weird fan. I did weirdly like Kevin. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend. I didn't.
Glad that you don't lie.
He wasn't my favorite, but I liked him.
So back to the Spice Girls. As we know, girl power does not die. So in 2007, the world went feral when the Spice Girls announced they were coming back for a world motherfucking tour. And they even had a musical, but it sucked, which I find that hard to believe. So I wonder
hard
who wrote
to believe.
So it didn't last very long. So if anyone has like dreams, like go write a Spice Girls musical, because maybe this time around it will do well. And then after that tour, they came back again in 2019 for another reunion. And each of them honestly, they made so much money, except for Victoria, who had fashion obligations and she did not perform. So at this tour, Geri even apologized to everyone for leaving, which is awesome. And the reunions even won them Billboard Live Music Awards.
Yeah,
so,
God, I have chills. I'm so excited about this.
So what was happening when they announced these tours?
So in the 2007 chart, there's a Mercury Cazimi in Cancer, and Mercury is retrograde. And Cancer is like the sign of the woman, right? And sort of like going back and like shining a light on girl power. Yeah. And the moon, it's ruled by the moon conjunct Jupiter in Sagittarius. Just sort of like, again, this like pop star sort of like enthusiastic, you know, women can do it vibes, as well as the nodal opposition in Virgo and Pisces. So we have, you know, the 9-year eclipse cycle, as well as just like the happenstance Mercury Cazimi in Cancer. And then on May 24th, 2019, there's a Mercury, it's right after a Mercury Cazimi in Gemini, which is conjunct the new moon when Geri left. Wow. It's so crazy how this works, right? And so it's sort of like, and Mercury's direct, which rules the sun in Gemini. So it's sort of like, it's the glue. It's like, you know, they're back together. And then we have the moon in Aquarius, which is like obviously an important sign for all of them. And also Jupiter, it's a Jupiter return. Jupiter's there in Sagittarius.
Hell yeah.
So anyone wondering how to like track your long-term life, 12 years, your Jupiter cycles the zodiac every 12 years, and the nodes are opposed to each other every 9. So think about that.
Besides leaving us with tons of straight up bangers, they taught an entire generation of girls born in the mid to late 80s, aka us, who were relatively young, about girl power and how to stick up for yourself. And this was during a time when a lot of girl groups were supposed to just like shut up, look pretty, wear the same outfit, you're not unique, yada, yada.
And a lot of pop culture critics credit the Spice Girls for bringing feminism back to the mainstream.
Hell yeah.
You know, other people say it was like a bullshit marketing tactic, which like maybe.
Whatever, it worked.
I know. Regardless, girl power took over the world, and young girls like us learned about feeling empowered, being yourself, and the importance of friends. So what was going on when this girl power wave was happening, Dana?
What I would like to attribute this to is like the Pluto entered Sagittarius, like right in the middle of the 90s. So I feel like that's, if we're going to do a blanket, like generational shift, that's like sort of taking Pluto from like the dark depths of Scorpio, where it's like, you know, like why our generation is like the first generation that's like, oh, we all have trauma, and sort of like putting it into like a, you know, like we can have fun too. And then Neptune entered Aquarius in 1998, and Uranus was in Aquarius the whole time that they were popular. So we have Neptune and Uranus together in Aquarius, and like Aquarius is significant for all of them, but also it's significant for like changing, you know, the zeitgeist. Like Uranus is like what disrupts or like diverts sort of the attention, or like, I mean, an individual or sort of like, you know, the collective. And then Neptune like just sort of obliterates or like dissolves boundaries. And like Aquarius is like very boundaried, but when Neptune is in Aquarius, it's sort of like made, I mean, like a lot of technological, you know, advancements happen, but also like it made boundaries that maybe were up for, you know, groups of people like women, I guess, like, you know, easier to get over. And then I also kind of wonder, this is like more of a theory, but Saturn and Aries, I feel like a lot of times when planets are in fall, it could be like fall or detriment. They are thought to be like not working as well. But I wonder sometimes if that could work better, if it can work in favor of like the non-dominant group in society, right? And sort of like let them take over. And then also Aries is like a dominant sign, right? And Saturn is the malefic, so it slows Aries down. But they also sort of like, I don't know, am I making any sense?
It's like almost like sit down, sir. Yeah. Like, and make room for like other people.
Yes, well said.
Other people being the Spice Girls.
Yeah. And they just like, you could find something to relate to in all of them. And I think that was super important because if you look at the other pop stars of the time, it was like just blonde, skinny girls. And like, of course you had that in Baby Spice, but like there just was such a broader range of women. And I think they were really the first ones to allow yourself to like, wow, like I can just be myself and be around my friends who are different than me, but we can all just like proudly share our interests and accomplishments instead of like hiding behind, you know, this like sugary pop facade. So
I love that.
We got to give him props. We got to give him props for that.
Leaning into like archetypes, sort of like we all do with astrology, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this is not the end of the Spice Girls. Apparently, Mel B wants to get back together with Victoria in 2023, so we will be anxiously awaiting until then. But next episode is our season finale. We're not going to tell you what it is. We're going to keep it a secret because we also have another secret announcement we're going to be letting you guys in on next week. So very excited for that. But until our season finale, I'm Elise.
I'm Dana.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Allegedly Astrology.
Girl power.
Girl power. La 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 la.
We did it.